right. I am now joined by Nando Vila, Mike Recine, and Wozni, Big Woz Lambre for our first Sopranos recap bonus episode. And I'm going to let all the guys introduce themselves here because they're all 10 things. But I guess the one thing I do want to say right off out of the gate is that if, because of what the show usually is the rest of the time, if you're expecting some sort of political takeaway here, if you, if
I'm doing a Marxist analysis of The Sopranos, Ben. I don't know about you. I'm doing the class breakdown of The Sopranos.
Of late
Tony
period
Cruz.
capitalism.
Yeah. So just to head off all the when are we going to get to the Marxism factory? Never, right? Like this is like we're just talking about The Sopranos. It's not that deep. I just thought it'd be a really fun thing to do, and that these are the three guys it'd be most fun to do it with. So, Nando, you want to kick it off and introduce yourself?
I'm Nando Vila. I'm the host of the Jacobin Weekends show on YouTube and co-host along with my brother Big Woz of the Woke Bros on the Count of Dings Network.
Yeah, I'm Woz Lambre, aka Big Woz. Obviously, I do Woke Bros for Count the Dings with Nando. I also work for The Athletic. I write about NBA and culture, as well as I do a podcast for The Athletic NBA Shows Network. And that's pretty much where you can find me. I try to, I try to be as woke as possible. And I mean our type of woke, right? Not like namby-pamby, oh my God, I need a safe space. Like it's not, I don't do that type of shit at The Athletic, but I do try to talk about just labor stuff when I can, and what it means to be Black as a fan, as a consumer, as somebody who has to, sort of absorb sports culture that has traditionally been shaped and formed by white dudes. Where like an example I'm trying to use is like, I can remember being at home and watching those kids wear all blue paint to Duke games and being like, why the fuck would anybody want to do that? And then turning on sports and they're like, look, that's a fucking fan right there. That's fandom. And I'm like, I don't know a single person who would do that ever.
Black people don't paint their bodies for sports.
We're not just doing,
they don't do that.
Doing it. Listen,
I never thought of that until right now.
Dude,
I've never seen like a Black fan and it's like a fat guy,
with
like
no clothes on.
Go Jets, and it's like they're all fat, like in the cold.
No, we will buy tickets. We'll watch your game on TV. We'll buy jerseys, but like we're not doing that. And so I just try to balance that sort of mode of sports commentary on my end.
Fair enough.
Nice. I'm Italian authenticity coordinator, Mike Recine. I'm genuinely 5/8 Italian, so just want to make sure that my people are represented authentically here and respectfully.
That's if we did a Sopranos podcast without an Italian person on, we'd get canceled.
You get canceled. Yeah. I'm your token. Token Italian guy.
Yeah, fair enough. Mike also used to, I guess I'm not quite clear if it's still going or if it's on break or if it's over, host a podcast called The Sit Down.
Yeah, it's still on. It's still going. I didn't do there's a couple episodes. Yeah, I took a couple weeks off, but we're coming back tonight.
Nice.
I'm rebranding the show a little bit. It used to be about organized crime, and I just realized I'm not very good at research, and I'd rather have a more comedy-focused show as a comic. And I think if you want to learn, I'm not the right person to teach you things. So,
Mike, are you from the Northeast?
Yeah, I'm from Jersey.
Oh, nice.
South Jersey.
Oh, perfect. Oh, so you're like one of those Eagles fans and stuff.
I'm a Jets fan.
Oh, wow. The respect.
Yeah.
I'm a Jets fan too, but I noticed like a lot of, because I went to Penn State and a couple of my friends from South Jersey were big Eagles fans.
Mm-hmm.
And they had the Eagle, the sort of accent, the water and, type of shit. And so I just assume most of the South Jersey people were like that.
Yeah, I guess there's kind of like a divide. I don't know where the divide is, but there's a point in Jersey where, yeah, it becomes more. I live closer to Philly than I do to New York, but I never liked I guess every Philly fan I ever met, I never liked.
Okay.
So
Funny you should say that, right? As I'm also a Jets fan, and when you're a Jets fan, you're sort of a Giants hater as well, especially when you live in New York. So I never really had any opinions about Eagles fans, right? Like I never thought about Eagles fans. I was happy when they beat the Giants, but it was never anything I had to think about the Eagles at all.
Yeah.
And then I moved.
You met some?
Yes, Central Pennsylvania.
Yeah.
And it's funny because at Penn State, there's a bunch of Steelers fans and Eagles fans. And the Eagles, who until very recently never won anything. But they were just so fucking obnoxious. They were They were horrible people. And I was like, oh, I hate the Eagles now.
Yeah. I know. Forever, that just felt like it was God's doing, that they never won anything. Like it wasn't supposed to happen.
And Pittsburgh fans who have all this tradition and basically never sucked ever in the history of the league. They're like these nice people, very regal. They might sing their little song there. Here we go. They might do that. But they're not going to stop in like the middle of like College Avenue, like 20 people going, E-L-G-L-E-L, Eagles!
Yeah.
Or sing Fly, Eagle, Fly. It's disgusting, guys.
Yeah.
Sorry, Eagles fans. We're not fans of you guys.
Yeah.
All right. Fair enough. We've got our token Italian, established our feelings about the Eagles. I'm actually glad you mentioned that, Mike, because maybe you can help clarify as we go on some of the geography of the Sopranos, because I'm realize that I'm very unclear about that, even though I lived in New Jersey
know anything
for
about
3.5
Jersey.
years.
Like literally nothing.
Okay. So yeah, I spent 2 years in so I'm from like South Jersey, near Trenton and Princeton, from a town called Hamilton. And then most of Sopranos takes place in Essex County. So Newark is in Essex County, and then a lot of the suburbs of Newark. So you hear mentioned. So I think Tony's house is in West Caldwell, New Jersey. So I went to Montclair State. When they talk about Dr. Melfi, they go, "Oh, you're seeing some broad from Montclair." There's a college there. It's a New Jersey state school. It's not a very good school, but I went there for 2 years before dropping out.
It's a little longer than Tony. This is a line. In
he
the
did
first
half.
episode.
No, I think Carmela did half a semester at Montclair State. Maybe I don't know.
But Tony went to Seton Hall, but he said he went to college for a semester and a half.
Okay. Yeah, I was like going to Montclair State, and I had a sales job. I had a door-to-door sales job that I was doing every night. I was knocking on doors and like making pretty good money for a college kid. And I just kind of didn't really I didn't really like it. I was also I started doing stand-up when I went to school. But yeah, so a lot of the show takes place in Essex County, so like Newark and the suburbs of Newark. So it's maybe about like 30 miles outside of New York City.
Okay. All right. That makes sense. Because there's always going into doing stuff in Newark, like with Zellman, as the show goes on. Yeah. But they seem to be, somewhere out in deep suburban New Jersey. I was never quite clear on.
Yeah, and it's funny when you watch the meetings. Like I always thought this was funny about the show when Tony will meet with Phil or meet with Johnny Sack or something, and they meet and they have a face-to-face meeting and it's in a park or something. They say like a couple words, like they both say like 2 sentences to each other, and they get back in their cars. And me, I'm like, that's like an hour and a half drive that you're going back to where you both live, because just traffic in the New York metro area is like, I know what those drives are like, and at certain hours of the day, you could be looking at maybe like 2 hours.
Yeah, I don't know anything about Jersey. All I know is Cory Booker's drug dealer friend T-Bone from Newark.
Mm-hmm.
Sounds like a bad place.
Yeah.
Do you guys remember that story?
Yes.
No, a little bit.
He got caught making up a fake drug dealer guy named T-Bone that he grew up with. Yeah, and it doesn't, like, someone like started looking into it and was like, asking like his office, like, okay, like, well, what was his name? Like, I want to interview him and stuff. And they're like, yeah, I don't remember his name or whatever. And like, they kept on like looking into it, and like a reporter basically established that it was a made up guy, that Cory Booker never knew a drug dealer named T-Bone, and there's no such thing as a drug dealer named T-Bone.
T-Bone sounds like that if you were writing a script and your first draft of a drug dealer,
right?
That's what you would probably name him.
Yeah.
Can you guys hear me?
Yeah.
Okay, I don't know what happened. Like it was on, it was looking good. I don't know what happened. No, so no, what I wanted to say was that as somebody who grew up in New York, and had family in Jersey, in Linden, New Jersey, which I don't know, is that New Jersey?
That's North
Central
Jersey, yeah.
Yeah, Linden, Elizabeth, Rahway, all of those areas. Like as somebody who's only visiting for a weekend or a week during the summer vacation to spend with my cousin, you don't really take in the differences and the subtleties of New Jersey, especially as a young person. And then, when you get older, you have friends who move to Hoboken and gentrifying Jersey City and all of that type of stuff. But this world of sort of suburbanite ethnic whites in New Jersey is not something I'm familiar with, but it seems very related to the Italian, Greek, Irish kids in New York that I went to high school with, like that grew up in basically, 2-parent homes. Their dad had a union job, was an electrician.
Yeah. It's like Queens.
Yeah, it's Queens, straight up. That's just Queens, So it feels very similar to that world that I was introduced to as a 14-year-old.
Yeah. It's a fun, I mean, it's a cool place because you're in the suburbs, but you feel like close to Manhattan. So you feel kind of close to where the action is. And if you want to hop on a bus or a train, and go to the city, and like I did in college, like go to the city with a Mountain Dew bottle with, rum in it. There you go. And hang out and,
And Mike, guess what? They call y'all Bridge and Tunnel. They call people like me in Queens Bridge and Tunnel.
Right.
That's it.
Right. Yeah.
It's the same thing.
It's different bridge, different tunnel. But
exactly.
Yeah, Queens is like full of townies in a way.
Yeah, 150 million. I was explaining this to
They're territorial.
Nando.
Yeah.
I was telling him on Woke Bros about how right-wing native white Queens New Yorkers are. Like pretty much every single white kid I went to high school with is a dyed in the wool. He's just Republican, right? Like it doesn't matter that their dad was in a union or that they themselves are in the union right now because their dad got them into that damn job, right? Like a lot of them are so freaking right-wing. It's hilarious almost.
Yeah.
Fair enough. So in the moving to Montclair, when we start out in season 1, episode 1, which is all we're going to get to today. Tony is in Dr. Melfi's office. He sees
staring at some tits.
He sees there's like a naked statue in the office. He perks up, like,
oh shit! Let's drag on the statue.
and then he goes into the office, and actually, I should. So this is 1999, and it's a very 1999 kind of opening because when he starts monologuing about his life, I remember thinking it's like, oh, this is basically like the beginning of American Beauty. And there's a lot of humor about what he's going to reveal and what he's not going to reveal because he's a gangster, and Dr. Melfi knows that he's a gangster. Dr. Melfi is his therapist, so she's nervous that he's going to tell her something that's going to lead to her being legally required to report it. Technically, she says.
Yeah. No, and it's just funny because like the I feel like therapy was like a newish thing. Like, I mean, I know it's always been around, but like, like it's kind of like the first gasp of like the destigmatized mental health was like the late 90s, and like now it's like hegemonic and like it's like
it's the same thing opposite. Wave as Russell Simmons becoming a yogi, you know what I'm saying? Of a piece. All of that stuff is of a piece with Hollywood type of people.
And you get in this episode, like you can really tell that it's like of that moment when it's like like Nando said, like therapy and particularly like taking like psychiatric drugs is like just starting to become super common. Like everybody's remarking on it. You know, like there's the moment where Dr. Melfi starts to prescribe him the Prozac. It's like, here it goes, the Prozac.
It's like that. I forgot that he mentions Gary Cooper in the pilot because like there's like one of my favorite Sopranos lines ever is like when they're in the car. It's like Tony's driving and like
it's the Columbus Day episode,
and then Chris is in the back and he's like that he was gay, Gary Cooper.
Because Tony's making this general point about how everybody's some kind of victim, and he's like, what happened to the strong silent type, Gary Cooper? If Gary Cooper was alive today, he would be something, black or gay or his.
Yeah, completely missed his point.
I thought it was dope that's the opening scene too. I think they're trying to set the tone about like where they're trying to take the series, as far as like getting into the mind of somebody who's a sociopath, or whatever, crazy criminal, and just like how just humanizing this dude. It's like an easy way to humanize him by having him do therapy and talk about his mommy issues, and, just feeling like, my career, I'm not where I want to be in my career, which as a millennial, that's just like catnip, because it's like every single person that I know, it's like, oh man, my parents, man, when they was going to work, man, you could buy a house for 25 G's and all of this. So it's like, it's a dope way to humanize somebody who, is basically a fucking monster. It's dope.
Yeah. So as he starts talking about his life, you see everybody. Well, actually, first you flash to when he's going out to get the paper, and then he sees the ducks in the pool. That the episode kind of revolves around his feelings about the ducks. This is a consistent thing throughout the show. That it's not subtle, but it works really well. That Tony is obviously a monster in many ways to a lot of the human beings that he interacts with, but he loves animals. Ducks, horses, dogs.
It's always funny to see like a guy like Tony, big like scary mob guy with like a thick, Italian American accent, being like, "Hey, get a load of the fucking monkeys," you know what I mean?
Like finding joy in something.
Yeah, he's finding joy, and like no one else is like, but he's just like the fucking. He like doesn't, and he's like reading the encyclopedia about the birds, like trying to learn about it. He doesn't know shit about them, He's like, the fucking thing's trying to swim. The duck, it's amazing. Isn't that amazing? The fucking duck is trying to swim.
Mike, did you watch this show in real time?
Me?
Yeah.
No, because I was in like 6th grade when it came out, and we didn't have HBO. Yeah.
Fucking young.
How old was I when it came out? 1999. I would have been 12. So I was in 7th grade, but I think the last season happened during my senior year of high school, and I just remember all of the kids just being bummed out about how the season ended. I just remember that. But
I think my mother-in-law wrote a letter to HBO, and she was like, "You give that man whatever he wants, you're gonna make the biggest mistake you ever." Because she like thinks that people listen to her. It's pretty funny. But apparently, when the show ended, they had like a viewing in some New Jersey bar that was like, "Hey, come and watch The Sopranos, and we'll serve dinner." And they thought that the TV broke, and they beat up the bartender. They were so mad.
Yeah.
Yeah, I don't know. It's funny because I remember, I'm pretty sure I had HBO at the time, but again, like a lot of my class, like my teammates, because I played football and basketball, so a lot of my teammates were Italian kids, and I remember they every Monday after this show was on, this is all they would talk about. But I just remember being like, I mean, come on, it's like, it's HBO. This isn't fucking Goodfellas. Like, what are we talking about here? Like, I remember thinking, because it was a TV show, that it couldn't really be like Scarface, like Goodfellas, like The Godfather, and just not, and I never gave it a chance until way later on in my life, man. Like, I didn't realize that it was this incredible, honestly. That's why
would you say that's better than The Godfather? If you can compare the two?
Wow.
I think it's in the same level as far as I'm concerned. But like one thing does everything that this show is doing in 7 hours.
Yeah.
Because obviously part 3 never happened. But the reason why I think The Sopranos is the greatest show ever, like I love The Wire, and because I think they're neck and neck, but to me, The Sopranos, especially just the family aspect, the sex, drug, money, and violence that I love, and the comedy, right? And because like Tony's mentoring his wife's nephew, right? Like I remember I remember I had basketball practice, right? And somebody died in my family in Maryland. And my basketball coach, I was telling him, I was like, yo, I'm not going to make practice on Sunday because I'll be in Maryland for my cousin's funeral. And I remember my coach being like, all right, that's cool. And then he's like, you really that close to your cousin? And I remember thinking to myself, because Coach Leary, rest in peace, I remember thinking to myself, like, yo, white people really don't fuck with their cousins like that? But then when you watch The Sopranos, it explains to you that, no, like Italian-American culture is actually quite different from what we call white culture. Like your cousin is like, might as well be your brother, your sister, your aunts. It's like this whole tight-knit thing, which I'm actually used to. But again, like when I met a bunch of white people at Penn State, you know, like Appalachian white people, that's like, I don't fuck with my cousin. I'm talking to my cousin. You crazy? I was like, wow, that's interesting. But Italians are different in that way.
Yeah, it's weird because I even have like I have cousins on the West Coast that are on my mom's side, and there would be times when like I would be out in Portland or in California. I'd be like, hey, we got to like get together or something. And it just like didn't happen. We just didn't get together. And if that was like my Italian cousin, we'd be, you know, they'd 100%. Stay over and we would make it a point. We'd go out of our way to, you know, hang out. So, yeah.
Nando, when did you start watching it?
I started watching, like, I was like, I didn't watch it like, you know, episode 1, 1999, but like I started watching it in probably my senior year in high school, which was 2004, like a DVD thing, you know, like when you used to, I think I got like a DVD box set of season 1, like
you
for
was
Christmas
rich.
or some shit. Yeah, totally. I got it for Christmas. and then I moved to, then I went to college and like I kind of kept on watching it through college. And then I remember when I moved to China in 2008, there was a DVD store. It was actually pretty funny. Like it's a DVD store called Movie World. And then there was a place across the street called Even Better Than Movie World. It was the funniest thing I've ever seen. But they sold like counterfeit DVDs. And
I was
bought
just
them
about
the whole
to ask
series
that,
for
but
like
I didn't want to
$1.
be racist. I was about to say, were those really the DVDs or was it?
No. This was like counterfeit shit. And but it was like in a store, like a big store. And you know, I bought like every single show that you could ever imagine. It's like what, you know, I watched The Wire, I watched fucking, this is embarrassing, but The West Wing, you know, just because I have like all these fucking box sets.
I'll join you in that. I used to watch The West Wing, but but yeah, I actually, I mean, I'm you know the oldest person here, but I certainly could have been watching it when it first came. Well, I couldn't have because we didn't have HBO, but I was like randomly.
Not TV.
Yeah, that's right. I was randomly over at my friend Les's house, and he was like the only person I knew who did have it, and this was during like season 3. I think it's the episode where Tony and Carmela go into family, you know, like couples therapy together, and then like I got hooked on it. I just like start like going over to his place every like Sunday night to watch it. And like then I eventually went back and watched like the early seasons. I guess this would have still been like VHS. But yeah, so we see after the ducks, we go into the house. We see all the members of the family. I think the priest is also there already.
Which is a different guy. It's a different actor. Did you guys notice that?
Dude.
They
Yes,
fucking recast the priest.
Right away, I noticed that dude was different. And that dude is that dude. Like, he's been, like, just a character actor in so many freaking things. I'm pretty sure I've seen him in 24. I've seen him in
the new priest.
Kinds of
not
stuff.
the old priest.
Yeah, the new priest. Not the old,
the new priest. Yeah, he's
I've
in 24. He's also in that Rambo movie in Burma. But it's funny, like the ongoing joke, like we were talking about, like, oh, they're like the Godfather is like a running joke in this whole episode. You know, like Carmela and the priest talk about it. Chris Moltisanti makes like a Louis Brazzi sleeps with the fishes. He's like, it's Luca Brazzi,
Luca Brazzi.
Yeah, but like, and then the priest asks Carmela, he's like, well, what does he rate Goodfellas? And then like you get interrupted and she can't answer. It's like pretty funny, like that you never find out where Goodfellas
which of course you have actually like a few characters on The Sopranos. The actors were in Goodfellas. Christopher was Spider. He gets his foot shot by Joe Pesci, and then he ends up being just randomly killed by Pesci, and like one of the best scenes for the movie, just because like it's such a, you realize what a casual thing it is for these guys, that they're like a little disgusted by him because he randomly killed this kid, and the punishment is that he has to dig his own hole. I was like, okay, whatever. I've done my own hole before. And then Dr. Melfi was the main character, Henry Hill's wife in Goodfellas, which is which is kind of funny because it was a plot point in Goodfellas that she was Jewish, but in The Sopranos, it's a plot point that she's not, because there's a line of dialogue where Tony says, I picked you because they gave me a choice between 3 Jews and a Paisan.
Yeah.
And she Elaine Bracco, she said that when they sent her the shit, they wanted her to read for Carmela, and she was like, bro, I'm off of the mob wife, the mob this, mob, but then they were like, well, we have this the shrink part who's also Italian. She was like, you know what, nobody's ever, and it's again, like when you're a black person sort of understanding that like there used to be these things that we associated to ethnic white people that have been absorbed into whiteness. It's like this idea that she was like, she felt it was important to play a shrink, a professional Italian person, like that wasn't some Goomba, essentially.
She's like, usually I just read for Pasta Lady.
I was just like, yo, that's so fascinating that as an Italian American, she felt like in 1999 that she needed to be breaking down racial stereotypes. I just thought that was fascinating. I saw that in an interview somewhere. I just thought that was dope. And I know that the show dealt with a lot of the anti-defamation Italian League stuff, which again is just hilarious.
Which is the only acceptable form of racism.
Don't remind me.
Well, I mean, in the show, the Italian anti-defamation thing is kind of a running joke.
Well, there's a hilarious joke too, like Chris in this episode when Chris goes to kill the Czechoslovakian guy who he keeps on calling email, and he's like, and he makes up like crack about Polacks, and the guy's like, I'm not Polish. He's like, Czechoslovakia, that's some kind of Polak, isn't it? It's so good.
And that's like, maybe I just don't remember well enough, but I think so. There's the Czechoslovakian guy that Christopher kills in the pork store. That's because they have like a rival bid. Yeah,
they're like underbidding them for the garbage removal contract or something like that. And it's like, we can't have this.
And I think they dropped that pretty quickly. I don't really remember the Czechoslovakians coming up again, except that Christopher is like haunted later by this particular murder.
Right.
But it is really weird to look at how many things are they hadn't quite figured out of the pilot, that are a little bit different. So before we started recording, Nando pointed out that Gandolfini is doing Tony's voice a little bit differently.
He sounds different, and he's thinner.
Yeah, it was cool to see likable Tony again.
Yeah, he gets like fat, like for the next episode.
Yeah, and like there are points where it almost seems like the way he's doing the voice, like you wonder, is he trying to do just a little bit of like Don Corleone in there? Like there's this point where they're in the church.
It sounds like he's doing a line read instead of sort of being. It sounds like he's reading something, because the way he's enunciating the words is just different from how he pronounces the words for the rest of the season. I think he's just straight up. I think he probably later on got the message like, yo, go off. Just go with the guy, instead of sort of trying to strictly adhere to, because again, it is the pilot and you don't really know if this shit is gonna pick up. You don't know what the story's going into.
Yeah.
And so that's what it felt like.
No,
It's pretty clear that Tony's the
yeah.
boss in the pilot too, I think, because he says like my father never reached the heights that I did, and he's got the big mansion. So I think they intended for him to be the boss, and then later in the season,
Nando.
he's a captain.
Yeah, right. And there's
They
the point
demote him.
where there's even a line where they're crossing the street, and his Uncle Junior, who by the way, it's always like a disconcerting thing for me whenever I watch The Sopranos, because my grandfather and his brothers all like looked a little bit like Uncle Junior, and a lot like some of the guys who'd like be hanging out with Junior like at the diner, but they weren't Italian, they're Croatian, but looks a lot like that. But in any case, Junior, as they're crossing the street, says, "You may run North Jersey, but you don't run your Uncle Junior," which definitely makes it sound like Tony's somebody who somehow outranks him.
Yeah.
And they've also, I think AJ was a lot fatter. And
I was shocked how fat he was.
Yeah, same.
Yeah.
Pillsbury.
Yeah.
Jesus Christ.
What, no fucking ZD?
Also, that first scene with Uncle June, where you what you just said, Ben, you may run North Jersey, but you don't run your Uncle June. Like, that's him. The whole entire fucking series, this character is established right there. Like, he's constantly bitching about stuff. And although he loves Tony, he hates him. He resents him at the same time. And that's what I think, Mike, makes this show so dope, is they're so good at showing this family dynamic stuff, man.
Yeah.
Like, they're nailing it. Where he's like, I took your bitch ass to Yankee games when you were a kid. Basically, I enriched your fucking childhood. You get to tell me what to fucking do now? Are you crazy?
Yeah.
You owe me, motherfucker.
Yeah,
It's incredible.
So we
And
should
there's also
say
that-
yeah, go for it.
There's also that moment in season 3 where Tony goes to see Uncle Junior, and he like gives him advice on being the boss, and he goes, "Yeah, you steer the ship the best way you know how." And it's like he's already tried to kill him at that point, But they have this nice moment together where he gives him a little bit of advice.
Also, I feel like you don't have ethnic family members if nobody's ever called you ungrateful for something. That is the number one critique from older. You're just ungrateful. You're ungrateful.
Yeah.
You're lucky. You're entitled. You never grew up in a third world country. Blah blah blah. Like, you're ungrateful. That's So that's like Junior is nailing that for me.
Yeah. So the reason that Junior's mad at him is because the Silvio Dante, who's I guess Tony's consigliere, he runs the Bada Bing, the strip club that's basically Tony's office for most of the show, which I guess actually in New Jersey you're not allowed to do go completely topless at the same time as you serve alcohol, but they do they do in there. Yeah.
I grew up in Miami.
Thanks, Obama.
In Miami they don't stand.
Yeah, they don't
that.
play that. They don't play
Yeah,
that.
I lived in Miami for 6.5 years.
They don't play that. They don't play that. If we're gonna do a strip club, we're gonna do a strip club. Period.
Yeah. Well, there's nothing like a Jersey strip club that's like on the highway, and you pass like a few porno stores to get there, and you have to make a U-turn on and you miss it a few times. And
So Silvio has told Tony that his Uncle Junior wants to kill Pussy Malenga, Little Pussy, not to be confused with Big Pussy, who's actually an important character.
Pussy is a nickname for what?
Yeah, I never.
Why are there two pussies? How would a mob guy stand for that? I don't know.
We're gonna call you Pussy.
Maybe they both have cats. They might be both cat people. You never know.
They got 9 lives. Yeah.
You never know.
So he wants to kill Pussy, Little Pussy, but he's going to do it at Vesuvio's, which is the restaurant that's owned by Tony's high school friend, Artie Bucco, who is important for many ways on the show. He's basically Tony's only actual friend who's not associated in some way with the business. And so Tony first tries to get Junior to just agree to do it somewhere else. He won't. You may run North Jersey, but you don't run your Uncle Junior. And then that's a big thread through the episode, that he comes up with these various schemes to try to make sure, without getting Junior to agree to do it somewhere else, that it just can't happen there. So the first thing he tries is giving Artie some cruise tickets. He says that in his role as business officer for the dentist.
The dentist, like assistant labor union or some shit.
Which is great.
He's a labor leader. He's a respected labor leader. That's where the Marxist analysis of the show comes in.
There we go,
it's
guys.
actually
That's
vicious anti-union propaganda.
Yeah. Well, sometimes you got to play ball.
Yeah.
He's a labor leader.
Yeah, so he says that in appreciation, the dentist bought him these cruise tickets, but he can't go on these days. And Artie, and this is very typical of the relationship going forward, Artie is all for it. He'd love to accept some cruise tickets from Tony Soprano, but wouldn't you know it, his goddamn bitch wife won't let him.
You know, I used to be like on board with like, man, that Charmaine Bucco, she's just such a fucking nagging bitch. And but like looking back at the, she's 100% correct. Like, you do not accept fucking free cruise tickets from the Dawn of New Jersey. What are you, insane? Like that shit doesn't come for free. You know, like she's 100% correct.
Yeah. She says, does not the mind rebel against any scenario by which dentists are buying cruise tickets for the Dawn of New Jersey, which is when Artie gets to do his, but he's a respected labor leader. So she says somebody lost their kneecaps for those tickets. We can't take them. So he has to come up with an excuse for Tony. He turns it down. At which point, having tried asking nicely and having tried this one scheme that, you know, that would have actually been okay, Tony defaults to the only thing that he can still think of, which is just to burn down the restaurant.
Yeah, you get the insurance money. It's all good. That scene is amazing. The final barbecue scene where they're all talking and like Artie Bucco's like just absolutely devastated. And they were like so proud of themselves that they'd come up with this like with this like
they
solution
ruined
to the
this
problem.
dude's
like,
life, and they're like, man, this is great.
Yeah.
And like they get angry at him for being devastated. Like that's such a running through line in The Sopranos, like the sense of entitlement, victimhood. You know, like when Tony like ruins the T3 Terminator, Robert Patrick's life in season whatever, like he gets angry at him for making him ruin his life. You know, like
like, why'd you have to be so terrible at gambling, man? What the fuck, bro?
Yeah,
you ruined both our lives. But yeah, Artie's he's a dope character too, because he is just so clearly not like the other. I guess they're supposed to be the stand-in for like us, for square society, you know, like because everybody who's in Tony's family is actually corrupted, like from his kids to his wife to everybody, whether it be the crime family or his mother, his sister, they're all corrupted. But Artie and his family are sort of like, they're nice, you know, law-abiding American citizen squares, and just
small business owners.
As they say in a later season about some people that they like less, they like Artie, a real flag saluting motherfucker.
But Artie, the dude that's playing Artie is doing just a great performance, man. Like he's hilarious. He's hamming it up, but he's hilarious, dude.
Yeah.
But it was just getting off the ground.
Yeah. Well, there's that funny anecdote. There's like a real, you know, when David Chase, like I guess, like when the show was like a huge hit, he like met with some mobsters, and they like, you know, they talked about the show, whatever, and they were like, man, it's like the most accurate portrayal, except for one thing. In the first episode, the Don, he never wears shorts. You know, that was like the one inaccurate thing is that Tony's wearing shorts in the barbecue.
Yeah, which I think
and I just love like,
and then
I love like these like little
says
unwritten rules. Yeah.
Well, Carmine Lupertazzi says that to him, I think, at some point. He goes, "What's this I hear about you wearing shorts at your barbecue?"
They wrote that in after Chase like was like chastised by some mob guys.
Yeah, incredible.
It's amazing. But there's like, I just love like the unwritten rules that like Italian Americans have. I don't know, Mike, I mean, but like, the Don never wears shorts, but also like Tony's mom, she's like, somebody called in after dark, and he's like, did you answer? He's like, no, I don't answer the phone after dark. And it's like, what the fuck?
It's like, Mom, I never understood that. Okay, it's dark. You don't want to go outside. Somebody could jump you in the shadows. But the phone, it's auditory. Yeah. So Tony's mother, Livia, who I guess David Chase got the name from. Anybody's ever seen that old BBC series I, Claudius, about the Roman emperors? Livia is this like is Augustus's wife, and part of the premise of the show is that like everybody who dies in some like mysterious way in Roman history, according to the show, is killed by Livia because she like poisons everybody. So she's like this horrible like viper person, which anyway, I don't know. That's what Michael Imperioli said. He thought that's where Chase had gotten it from. So in any case, Livia is just the most like awesomely, suffocatingly joyless human being of all time.
She's incredible. Like, apparently that was like the genesis of the David Chase's idea for the show, that he would like his mom was like apparently some sort of monster, and he would like, it was like almost like a party trick. Like he would like tell stories about his mom, and someone was like, you should do a show about that, and like that was like the germ of the idea for his friend. It was like, it's clear that she is like.
I find that interesting. Do you guys put your family business or trauma in any of your work?
Yeah, I got in trouble for it this weekend.
What'd you do?
I tweeted something about my grandmother, who's like a very like mean, who I'm close with. She's a very mean person. I tweeted something, and she loves Trump, and I said, somebody better go check on my evil whore of a grandmother. It was like a throwaway joke. And I guess
they didn't think it was.
I guess my uncle follows me on Twitter, but secretly. Like, I don't know who he is. I can't block him or anything. He just like keeps tabs on me.
Right.
So I got a text. So he texted my brother, and then he texted me, and I apologized to like do damage control, but then he went and snitched to my grandmother that I was tweeting about her. So now like there's just this big shitstorm in my family because of some tweet that like they were never supposed to see.
Mike, no.
Yeah. And right before I blocked his number, I said, you're a tattletale and a shit kicker. And it felt really good to like say that to an adult, an adult. I'm 33 years old, but yeah.
Because I'm asking like to like sort of throw your mom under the bus that way on the show with a character like this is interesting. But again, like I don't.
Your mom loved you, man.
That's
what
it is.
What if your mom was a fucking monster?
No, man, it's scary to think about. Like I just would never do that.
But telling someone not to talk about their family is like telling someone not to talk about where they grew up or where they went to school.
Yeah,
it's like it's part of your life. Maybe you shouldn't have hit me with a belt then if you don't want to be talked about on a podcast.
Man.
Yeah. So Tony's talking about Livia in therapy. He ends up doing this a lot. He says that his dad was a tough guy. He ran his own crew, but Livia wore him down to a little nub. And you see some of that in their interaction. Tony buys her a CD player,
like a boombox.
Yeah, like a boombox and like some CDs of like old records that she liked from like the 60s or something.
Yeah.
And then she's like horribly insufferable to him, like she always is. And then,
well, it's funny that like,
yeah,
she doesn't even grant him that, because he's doing a really nice, like, it's like genuinely really thoughtful thing that he did for her, for seemingly no reason, right? Like there was it's not her birthday or anything like that. He just like went out of his way, bought a fucking boombox and got all these old records and CD. And like at the same time that she's like denying him that little, just like that little ounce of gratitude. She's like, oh, I don't want this thing. Like, you crazy, She's at the same time like serving him the eggplant dish that she made, even though like he was like, I just ate, I don't want it. And she like just didn't listen to him and just like cut a giant piece of the eggplant thing and just like served it to him. You know, like it's at the same time, you know, like you're denying them, but you're being like this kind of overbearing
nurture.
mother. Yeah.
It's almost like a power move when you don't let someone do nice things for you.
Totally.
Like there's never a, I just kind of realized that.
Yeah, it's like emotional
she
terrorism.
She doesn't want to have to be thankful to him. She doesn't want to have to be like, oh wow, Tony, that was dope. She doesn't want any of that. She just wants to bitch.
And also,
him.
like, you know, you only say nice things about someone that's not around. You only say, you know, when someone's around.
She's constantly saying that Tony's father was a saint. And he kind of mentions, she never, that was not the story when he was alive. So so he ends up storming out. The one of the most memorable lines from the episode is, "I bought CDs for a broken record," and another family drama thing that's going on. I mean, the two big mob things are the deal with the Czechoslovakians, and the Uncle Junior Vesuvio's plot line. But the other big family drama plot line is about Tony's wife Carmela and their daughter Meadow. I think one of the things that did seem a little interesting along the same lines, is like the voice thing. By the way, what I was thinking with the voice was, there's the scene where Tony and Meadow are sitting in church, and he says, your mother thinks you could be a top student, and the way that he says it, like, is almost like, is weird, right? Because he never does anything like this at any other point in the show. But like the inflection of his voice is almost like he was trying to do like what would be like a mob guy in a video game's voice or something.
Yeah.
But it's also, I think the way that you see Carmela's lifestyle here is a little bit different from what you see later on. Like she's taking cash out of, like, she's got a bunch of, was it like food cans or something?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, like a Campbell's soup can.
Yeah. She's got like Campbell's soup cans, and she just has wads of cash in there, which isn't something I really remember from later in the show. And most strikingly, when she's sitting there, eating popcorn with the priest, and telling religion, Carmela's flirtation with being a serious Catholic is a big part of the episode. When Tony is going into his MRI before they decide there's nothing physically wrong with him and send him to therapy, the last thing she says to him before he goes under is, the difference between us is that you're going to hell when you die.
Yeah.
So she's sitting there eating popcorn with the priest. They have the conversation Nando quoted earlier about The Godfather and Goodfellas. And then she hears a noise outside, and pilot episode, I don't think you ever would have seen this at any other point in the show. Yeah. Her reaction to hearing a mysterious noise outside is to grab an AK-47 and like go out to, I guess, like shoot whoever she thinks is out there.
Yeah. A little overstated.
But then it turns out it's Meadow.
Yeah, and that's what I mean about the family stuff about this show, is being what gets me. And I don't mind sharing this with your audience, Ben, but like my mom and my sister have a very difficult relationship. Like, it's just a constant work in progress, a constant 2 steps forward, 3 steps back situation with them. So like watching that play out with those 2 women just rings true to my own life experience, right? And like the way they're doing it, the like sort of like, when one is searching for the love and the affection, the other one's retreating, and then vice versa. Like, it's always sort of misaligned, the way the relationship goes. And like the way they do it on the show with like, Meadow's like, she didn't even come to my game. And like, like the way they handled that was just so dope. And, besides Tony, my 2 favorite characters are Uncle June and Carmela, because they just feel so full and rich. And Carmela, because she's so human, right? Like, she is the nurturer of the family. She is like, she's holding down this whole she's making this family a family. Like, her by herself is making it a real actual family, right? But at the same time, she's like greedy as fuck, you know, like really covetous and just like very materialistic and in that sort of way. And she's very complicit in the shit that Tony does. But she's just my favorite character. Like she's just so fully drawn out and realized, man. And I think you're seeing some of that in this episode, like the way she is with Tony and the Catholic stuff and all the stuff you mentioned. Like she's just a dope character.
Yeah. And I mean, it's an interesting thing that kind of like runs through the whole show is how, you know, like Carmela, you know, there's one point in one of the later seasons when there's an episode where she tries going to a therapist herself, and it's this like, you know, super judgmental therapist, and he's basically saying that he can't accept her as a client because she's complicit in evil, and he says, oh, and Carmela's lie is, look, I just make sure he has clean underwear, right? That's it. And sometimes, you know, it's that, and it's almost like this is unrelated to her somehow, that this is just like, you know, that her husband happens to be a gangster.
Well, it's also the source of tension between her and Charmaine, right? Because Charmaine used to bang Tony, and you know, and Charmaine's like more attractive.
Good for Tony. Yeah. She might be the most attractive in the show.
Yeah, definitely. Well, Adriana
Nice.
Adriana's.
Charmaine is nice. I don't think there's a chick on the show I'm not into, to be honest with you.
Yeah, I mean, as Meadow
I
gets
love
older,
Dr. Melfi, man. I got a Dr. Melfi.
Yeah.
But,
even Janice, you're like, I get it, you know?
Right.
Stick a gun on my
well,
ass.
she's into some freaky shit, dude. You know, she likes to get banged with a gun to her head.
She's a kinky one, that one.
Yeah, she's down for whatever, you know, like.
Yeah.
But yeah, Charmaine could have been Carmela. Like she could have married Tony, but she didn't. She married Artie, you know, the straight and narrow guy, and doesn't lead the same life of luxury that Carmela does. Like Carmela was okay with it, and like the implication is that Charmaine was not, and that's why like there's that level of resentment between them.
And Charmaine does like makes a big deal saying that she doesn't even like it that these guys patronize the restaurant because it makes them look bad. You know, they're associated with criminals, which, you know, I don't know. Like, I guess it's a moral thing because it seems like if anything that has to be good for business, but yeah. And then, so Carmela, like at times, you know, she acts like all of this really has nothing to do with her. At times she like really struggles with like the morality of it. And a lot of the time she's sort of sliding somewhere in between, like making these really half-assed excuses. You know, it's like, whatever, you know, they're like Halliburton executives in the world, you know, Tony's not that bad. And I think very, you know, I think that as long as she can keep it separate, you know, in her head, it'll be like a relatively small thing for her. But Uncle June's interesting, right? Like that's the that's the other one. I mean, what do you think is like? I mean, there is something really, really compelling about Junior, but I'm not sure exactly what it is.
It's just Uncle June is just that aggrieved. Like we all know this person who is just always aggrieved. Like he is the
didn't quite
aggrieved
make it.
Party. Yeah, like
it came up just short.
Just short, and is always. It's one of those things where one person's success is seen as my own failure type of thing, right? And just like, like what I love about Uncle June too is that he knew that he could bring up the idea of killing Tony to Tony's own mother, and did it. Like he knew what the response would be. He knew it. He knew it. He wasn't tiptoeing. He wasn't scared.
Yeah, it says something might have to be done about Tony.
About Tony.
Olivia kind of looks away a little bit, but she doesn't really seem to be bothered by it.
You know, Uncle June was in Godfather 2. He was
Johnny Ola.
Johnny Ola. But I mean, you know, the reason why The Sopranos endures so much, and the reason why like people could still watch it and it feels relevant, is because the thing that he understood is that every single American person, like in like, you know, of a certain like boomers, forward is like the most narcissistic person to like ever walk the face of the earth. Like that's true of every single American. You know, that is the defining thing about American. It's like being an American, no matter if you're Italian or whomever, and that like everything that happens, anything that happens in the world, it's just like it only matters to the extent that it affects me. You know, that is like such a defining American characteristic, and it's like runs throughout the show. Every single major character, like from Chris in this episode getting mad at Artie Bucco for not really fully appreciating the sacrifice that he made by burning down his fucking restaurant. You know, you know, and it's just that's just everyone is just like self-obsessed. You know, and that's what he understood. That's what it means to be in America, post-boomer generation. It's just we're all
and again they are, you know, this is made at that Prozac Nation moment. Like so I should say that early in the episode, Tony and Christopher beat the shit out of this guy Mahafny.
He's like an actor who's in a bunch of shit too.
Yeah, he's another guy type of guy. He's always like a sheriff or like a middle management type. He's like that in every single thing I've ever seen him in.
Yeah, and in this particular case, he works for an HMO and he has a gambling problem, and so he owes them money, which is why they run him down. And it's like a really striking thing because Tony is so moody and depressed throughout this episode. But the two things that give him joy in the episode are the ducks and beating this guy up. Like he loves it. Like he's running him down with his car. And there's a huge smile on his face.
Time of his life.
And then, but then it turns out that Mahafny, even after they've crippled him, he's not going to pay them because he does not have the money. And this is also when we introduce Hesh, who's like the Jewish, I don't know, like semi-Silvio like figure, you know, who's in who comes up a lot over the course of the rest of the show as an advisor and as, you know, as a associate, and Hesh is also owed money by Mahafny. And what they all end up coming up with is that there's a scene on the bridge where they do this thing they do every once in a while that Sopranos, where they'll like either threaten to kill somebody or they'll order somebody to be killed, but they're like weirdly subtle about it. Like my all-time favorite example of this was from one of like the last seasons when Christopher has made it up through the ranks a little bit and he's actually in the position to order a hit, and he and like whoever he's ordering to kill this guy are playing pool. And he's talking about this guy owing the money, and the person he's talking to says, "Oh, you want me to collect?" And Christopher's like, "Nah, that ship has sailed." And it's kind of the.
Does he say final notice time or something?
Oh yeah, I think he does.
Yeah.
And it's kind of a similar thing here. They that Hesh and one of the other guys, I don't remember which one, take Mahafny out to the bridge, and. This is the other reference to psychiatry suddenly being all over the place because he talks about how he's on Zoloft and it's not Prozac, but it's similar and it's supposed to help him with his compulsive behavior, like gambling. And everybody like sort of does chit chat for that about a minute, and then they kind of subtly imply that if he doesn't go along with this scheme, they're going to throw him off onto the rocks. And the scheme is that because he doesn't have the money, they're going to like come up with a bunch of fake accounts to charge for like MRIs that never happened to the HMO. So Tony's constantly scheming since he just had the MRI. You know, he thinks of this, you know, we can make money by charging for fake MRIs. And in any case, this is part of a big thread going throughout the episode, because early on, Tony does his rant during that beginning of American Beauty sequence, where he says that his father, you know, he never rose to the heights that Tony did, but things were better for him back then because, you know, they had values and a sense of identity.
Yeah.
And he says that, you know, I realized it's best to come in at the beginning of something. I feel like I came in at the very end. and that's like kind of a running thematic thing throughout the episode, like that times are changing, that they have to get with the changing times. The mafia is no longer recession proof. That's something Uncle June says at one point.
It's a great 90s term too. Like that doesn't, you don't really hear anymore as much because now it's just the constant kind of recession.
Yeah, he's basically comparing the mafia to the Rust Belt. It's like, bro, this thing is over.
Yeah, America, like to the end of history, like it was just over. Like they already got the sense that this was over. Yeah, you know, America is over. But yeah, no, it's.
You gotta think.
They established that they're what Christopher calls their bread and butter at one point are these garbage routes. Part of that, I think, is some of the characters are trying to sell drugs on the garbage routes, but I actually remember that it comes up later that Tony doesn't like that. Right. So what's the main way? Like, is it just that they're shaking people down for contracts? I mean, what's the main way they're actually making money with these garbage routes?
It just feels like another union grift. Like, that's just what it is. Like, anything that the union has its hands on, whoever gets their tentacles in it first is gonna get the money, right? Like, that's what that's what the whole business model was, right? Because it's like there's only so much drugs and all of that these guys want to get into. For them, it's just kind of like, yo, these are like what we're doing is semi-legitimate, right? Yeah. Like this, we actually do move garbage from one place to another for money. How we get our contracts might be but what they're doing is real jobs.
They get kickbacks from for offering from a waste management company or a construction company. I mean, that was like a. In the 80s and shit, like they would control the union, and so the union would basically decide what contractors got the bid was, and so then they would just take a cut of that, and and the history of why labor unions got tied up with the mafia is an interesting one, and it just has to do with just the violence that America unleashed upon unions, and they were like, okay, well these guys are down to. For a price, they're down to fight back.
It's a great story because it's
it is.
You gotta, it's like you gotta play ball. It's like Jimmy Hoffa kind of understood that you have to play their game.
Yeah. I mean, actually, I have to say, I'm sure all you guys watched The Irishman, and I know that he did things that are worse than I think portrayed in that movie, but I really came out of The Irishman being like, oh yeah, like Jimmy Hoffa seems
same.
He seems like a pretty good labor leader.
Totally. I mean,
sure, he's willing to make some deals.
Sure,
with the
but
mafia
he's busting his ass for the right people.
Strikes,
and then he put the flag up when they killed Kennedy. That was pretty cool.
But there's a documentary that came out in the 70s called Harlan County, USA, which is about Harlan County in Kentucky with the coal mines. And it shows a labor struggle there. And it just shows that even as late as the 1970s, how violent those things were. Like the company would hire gun thugs to go show up and they killed a guy. They killed one of the guys. So the labor struggles were incredibly violent. So the labor.
That was in the 70s?
Yeah, in the mid 70s. You should watch that. That documentary is amazing. Yeah, okay. Harlan County USA it won the Oscar for best documentary some year, whenever it came out. But it's just incredible. It's just a really well done thing. It totally holds up. It's not boring at all.
Yeah.
You
know what platform
really
it's on?
Watching it. Yeah. It's on the Criterion channel, but if you don't have that, I think it's on YouTube. Mind. No, it's on YouTube.
Okay.
Also.
All right.
But I don't know what the quality is if you're into that shit. But
okay.
Yeah,
Fair
it's
enough.
on YouTube.
There's a story about Jimmy. Sorry, go ahead. Well, there's a story about Jimmy Hoffa when he's 16. He worked in a grocery warehouse, and there was a thing where the conditions were really bad, and they were unloading strawberries from the trucks, and you had to bring the strawberries in a certain amount of time. And when he was 16 years old, he organized this thing where everybody put their strawberries down to stop the chain or whatever that was.
Nice. So
Yeah.
I
Shouts to
know,
Hoffa, man.
Yeah.
I know.
R.I.P.
So we did end up doing class struggle after all at the end of the
There you
episode,
go.
despite what I said at the beginning of the episode.
It's who we are.
I know. I know Nando's got a hard out in just a few minutes, but real quick, lightning round. Anything particularly stand out about this episode to you that we haven't talked about yet? Was
them establishing Tony's just like insatiable appetite for side pieces, and the audacity to bring your side piece to the same
To
spots
Vesuvio.
that you bring your wifey to, like, woo, that caught my eye really quickly. I was like,
I wondered about that. I was
Tony,
like, wow,
you
he's actually
reckless,
bigger to
brother.
Vesuvio's, where everybody sees him with Carmelo all the time.
To me,
that
every
definitely
time
caught my eye.
every time I rewatch Sopranos, the thing that always strikes out is just how fucking funny it is. Like the writing,
yeah.
like it's just like nothing today is as funny as The Sopranos, and like no one thinks of it as a comedy, but it absolutely like is just the funniest
It's a
show.
dark comedy,
Like
for sure.
when there's the ongoing joke of them fucking up names, like when he's like Tony's like when Carmela's like about to throw the wine in his face, and he's like, "What do I look like, Hannibal Lecter?" It's like, and then she like doesn't like it just never addressed. It's just like he just fucked up the name, like it's just fucking great.
Nice, Mike.
It was cool to see likable Tony again because I just rewatched it recently. So I've only seen the show in entirety twice, but I watched it with my wife. And season 6, the first part of season 6 is, I think it's really kind of I mean, in my opinion, it's maybe the weakest season, just because Tony gets so petty and vindictive
not fun
and
anymore. Yeah.
And yeah, he's not fun anymore. And I think they had to write him that way because too many people were like, Tony Soprano's my hero, And I think they were really trying to drive the point home that he's not a good guy. They really had to like beat people over the head with it.
Just in case you missed it.
Yeah.
No, fair enough. I think there was a lot of I think there's a lot of like kind of cliched like mob and Italian culture stuff that was in this that's like really toned down by the time we get to see it to like episode 2.
Mm-hmm.
Like when Tony shows up to Vesuvio's with Carmela, and at first I wasn't even sure if it was supposed to be Vesuvio's because like they had this greeter who has this like this Italian accent, it's like, oh, Signora Carmela, and it's like, I don't feel like they would have done that later on in the show. So it's like this, I mean, it's great. Like, I loved the episode. It's like you can already see so much.
It's a very good pilot.
It
like really establishes the world like perfectly.
But also like all the things that they tweaked, like for like the beginning of the actual show, were good tweaks.
Yeah.
All right. Thanks so much, guys. So do this again in December for season 1, episode 2, 46 long.
There you go. We'll finish in 10 years.
Yeah, sounds good. All right. Thanks, guys.
See you, boys.
Yeah.